Hi, my name is Aitana Hecht from the DailyClout. I'm here with Marley Hornik, and she is the Director of New York Citizens Audit. Marley, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Aitana. Nice to see you.
You too. So I actually, I did some research on what you guys are doing over there, but I'd love to just hear it from you, and you can tell us how you got started and just take it away.
Sure. New York Citizens Audit is an all-volunteer group of liberty-loving patriots from across New York State, actually over 1,100 strong now. And we
Wow.
began just with a simple question, which was if there was something unusual or something untoward about the 2020 general election, did it affect New York? So we, through the Freedom of Information law, we requested a copy of the New York State voter rolls. We requested copies of the county voter roll databases as well, and we downloaded a spreadsheet from the New York Secretary of State's official website called Official Results of the 2020 General Election. And we just started digging. We had extraordinary auditors, programmers, intellects, really, really brilliant people because the lockdowns in New York were so severe and the mandates were so stringent that many people were unemployed who otherwise should have been making 6 or 7 figures working for major banks, working for big IT firms, like that. So our team is brilliant and we started digging in. The database is massive. The New York State voter database is 21 million records long. So it's a huge piece of raw data to try to start sorting through.
How do you
But
even begin?
right, well, I wouldn't know because I'm not a programmer. But thankfully, like I said, we had really brilliant people who had a good idea about how to begin. And right away, we started finding the craziest anomalies. And in fact, one of the reasons why we immediately started calling for the decertification of the 2020 general in New York is that we discovered just by skimming the surface of the voter roll database and that Secretary of State website download, we discovered that there are 338,000 more votes cast than voters who voted in the 2020 general election, even according to their own data. Like this is just the New York State Board of Elections data and the New York Secretary of State data.
What's their immediate response to that?
Well, they've completely ignored our findings. In fact, that one and other very, very serious findings. As we go deeper into the database, we find more and more evidence, really prima facie evidence, that the database is being manipulated. It is not just a repository of voter registration information. There's numerous ways and proof that someone is manipulating this database for a non-innocent purpose. Now, obviously, we are not criminal investigators and we can't determine what the purpose is, but I think it's pretty obvious why you would manipulate a voter database is so you can
Right.
manipulate elections. It's really not
But they,
rocket
they need to have
science.
some sort of response that they're giving to the public.
Well, no, their response is that we're election deniers. That's what the media has said. And the officials have given absolutely no response whatsoever. So we've brought our evidence, in fact, and that point is just one of many. We uncovered a quarter of, or actually 750,000 votes in 2020 that were assigned to registrations that should be ineligible according to New York state law. And many of them, for example, people whose registrations were purged during the period of the election itself, there's no known way, there's no possible remedy, like there's no clerical error or poll worker remedy that could have been applied to allow over 31,000 purged voters to vote during that election. In fact, the only plausible explanation is that someone who had this kind of insider access to the voter roll database itself manipulated it and assigned those votes contrary to the law. So again, we brought the data, we brought it to the Secretary of State, we brought it to the Attorney General, we brought it to the commissioners of the New York State Board of Elections, the heads of the major parties. We've brought it to the SIU unit of the state police, sheriffs, DA. We have brought this evidence to the Inspector General all over New York State. And so far, everyone says it's just not something we can look into. We don't have jurisdiction, or they've just completely ignored it.
Not even one of those entities that you brought it to was interested.
Well, actually, we're making a little progress right now. I think, and it's sad that it had to come to this, but I think the outcome of the 2022 general election was so shocking to so many people across New York State who believed we were going to see a red wave in New York. Because honestly, the progressive policies are very extreme. And there are few people who wholeheartedly support them. I'm not going to say what color New York State is. I'm not going to go there. That's not the point. It's just that the agenda, the progressive agenda, is is troubling to more and more people across New York State of every political affiliation. So what we're seeing now, post midterm, is that DAs and sheriffs are more and more interested in meeting with us, and they want to know, is our evidence actionable? And how do they start to sink their teeth into it? If the state level officials are going to ignore it and the traumas are going to keep rolling out across New York State, who's going to act? And
Right.
they are actually more interested than they have been. Yes.
Right. It's going to come to a head somewhere. So, you know, I guess that so the local defense attorneys are now interested. District attorneys are now interested in the case.
Some are, yes. Some are very
So
interested.
what happens next? What's your next move?
Well, right now we're working to help folks across New York State participate all together in an effort to get that 2022 midterm audited end to end. The problem you see is that given what we found from the 2020 general election, there were millions of material violations of black letter election law. So the law is so crystal clear. I'm not an attorney, and you read this law and it's unequivocal. You can tell exactly what the procedure is supposed to be. And then you look at our findings and you will see there are millions and millions of registrations and votes, or millions of registrations and hundreds of thousands of votes that violate clear black letter election law. So the problem they have is that when so all along the way there's all these little whirlpools and eddies, right? This is what they call the shenanigans. Okay, so it's like
Okay.
this, there might be 20 votes over here or 150 votes over here or 3,000 votes over here, but how do you put it together and say this election was manipulated and it needs to be investigated? The problem they have is that when they certify the election, the officials who are tasked with signing off on the election results have a positive affirmative duty before they sign to ensure the American people and the people of New York State that the results are accurate. They're provably accurate, meaning all of the records that pertain to the administration of the election are available and can be audited, and that it was compliant with the law. They have to prove that, and they have to do it before they certify. So when you have an election outcome with 338,000 more votes than voters, you have prima facie evidence right there that they did not check to make sure the results were accurate before they certified. That makes the certification a literal fraud. And those certifiers are on the hook for perjury, in fact, personally and in their official duty. So we're working to let people across New York State come and help because, with these folks in elected officials in office, they're not willing yet. Either they're a party to the fraud, or maybe they're cowards, maybe they're terrified. Maybe they're parties to smaller frauds and they don't want that discovered. We don't really know what's preventing people from stepping forward. I certainly know when I step forward, I get called an election denier left and right. I know that I'm standing in the middle of a massive, like, artillery shelling game. And I'm just, no, I have the facts. So I have to stand there and say truthfully what we know. But we need people across New York State to come on our website, auditny.com. You'll see on the very front page, you scroll down, there is a resolution there, resolution for an audit of the 2022 general. And it lays out the predicate very simply using Supreme Court precedents, using the federal laws, that require elections to be provably accurate before certification. It lays out the federal law that stipulates what is an allowable error rate in a federal election, and it lays out what we found. And then
Okay,
it
so
calls for this audit. And so people are going to fill that out. They're going to get it filled out for their town officials, for their mayor, for their sheriff, whoever they want to
to
get
send
on the
around.
record. Yep. They want to get them on the record. Say, read through this document and you tell us, yay or nay, you're in support.
Okay, so it seems like, I mean, the public officials generally tend to respond to public pressure. So it needs to reach some sort of critical mass before they really jump into one side or the other of this thing. It seems like people just don't want to touch it because it's so big, and everybody
Absolutely.
just says, it's just too big for me. That's what it seems like is happening. Um, So, first of all, I love that you set up a civic action, a call to action that people can go onto your site and be able to send to the representatives all this information for themselves. That's very on brand for what we do at DailyClout, which is a lot of civic democracy. And I'm excited to get a link and an article about what you guys are doing up onto our site as well. Where is the best ways for people to find you on social media?
We're on all the platforms, New York Citizens Audit News, and I personally am on Truth and Twitter, so you can follow me personally there, but the team is on all of the platforms. I just can't keep up with that many platforms.
I know. It's a lot. That is great. Have you held any sort of public events? Have you connected with any politician who's been interested in the cause, even if he, won't say so publicly at this stage? What else can you tell us about the process?
Yeah, we've held quite a few public events, including that I was a speaker at Catherine Engelbrecht and Greg Phillips' event in August, The Pit. And I spoke about the manipulation of the voter roll database that we discovered, and basically the miracle that we discovered it. The folks who did that work really cracked through some extremely complex NSA level obfuscation programming, some deliberate coding that masks the way the database is manipulated. So I
That's
spoke about
incredibly
that there.
impressive.
But we
Yeah.
also we've participated in and hosted events around New York State. A couple weeks ago, I was in Chemung County. I did a presentation for some county legislators there, other events in Western New York, in the Hudson Valley, Long Island. We've been all over the state presenting our findings because we know it's like if the people are not armed with the facts in this particular arena, it's going to be devastating, whether that means that the people end up just utterly defeated or whether there ends up in a civil war. Either way, it's just not going to work out well. And it's getting very dire here in New York.
Yeah.
Many, many people are suffering in ways that were unimaginable to us a couple of years back,
Can
just
you give me an
inconceivable.
example?
Well, I think there's many examples. If you follow the news in New York City, you'll see that the amount of crime is outrageous, skyrocketing, and the official responses are to throttle the police officers, to accept many of their resignations due to to vax mandates or because of lack of protection and support from the media and from the officials who oversight the daily on the street guys, the beat cops. There's so much unnecessary violence, and the policies that allow for prisoners to walk free, for people who are arraigned for drug crimes to walk right back out the door after all of that detective investigative work is done. I'll give you an example. This is upstate. We were on the phone, well, we were on a teleconference with one of the sheriffs in the southern tier, and he was fascinated by what we were showing him, and he found it very compelling because one category of evidence that we like to show sheriffs is how there's a minimum of 1.25 million registrations in the New York State voter database that literally represent criminal identity theft. So someone's personal identifying information has been stolen, has been duplicated in the database, assigned a new State Board of Elections identification number, and many of these IDs, many of these clones are casting votes, contrary again to every kind of election law you can imagine. So we were speaking to this sheriff about this situation, And he said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I've got to go. One of the assistant DAs just overdosed on fentanyl."
Oh my gosh.
We were on the phone with another sheriff in the Adirondack region. He said, "Well, I've got to go because this guy who committed a murder last week and was let back out, the DA declined to prosecute and has just committed another murder. I'm so sorry that I can't complete this meeting with you." And we're thinking, gosh, if we just clean up our elections and they're provable, are these the same officials who would be representing us, or are all of these election outcomes being manipulated to someone else's purpose? Because the people don't want this. We don't want our children to be suffering. Like, why are young people turning to drugs? I want to know about that. I want to know how we can help people from much earlier on in their lives to feel joyous and enthusiastic about being here in this beautiful world, right? But instead, we're
And
arguing, we're saying, oh, well, by the time they've overdosed on drugs or gotten themselves into a pregnancy that they didn't want, that's when we're going to intervene with these dire, drastic policies saying, well, you can go ahead and get an abortion up to the point of birth. This is
so it really
infanticide.
just seems like these progressive policies are being felt on the street level at this point, on the local and street level, and people have had
Absolutely.
enough. And elections, according to all of your findings, have not reflected the people's true choice in New York, in the
Well,
state of New
no
York.
one knows, okay? That's the problem. No one knows. When you certify an election based on false accuracy, right? Inaccuracy. No one knows the actual outcome. And that's an interesting point I want to bring up. One of the findings that we highlight in a report that's at our website, it's downloadable from our website, auditny.com. This report is called New York's 2020 General Election, a study in deficits. We have a chart in there that demonstrates how the 740,396 votes cast by ineligible registrants are distributed in 2020 across the 27 congressional district races. This chart has nothing to do with party and it has nothing to do with any candidate. We're not arguing in favor of or against any candidate. We don't know who won. The point is, neither do the elections officials know who won.
The
Because you'll
people who
see
signed off that they legally know who won.
exactly. So you go and look at some of these races, you have maybe 36, a victory margin of 36,400 votes, but you have 36,200 votes cast in that race that are fraudulent. Or you may have 40,000 votes cast in that race that are fraudulent. And there's no way, because ballots are anonymous, there's absolutely no way to know who those fraudulent votes were cast in favor of. There's literally no way to know. And so at that point, you cannot, under the law, if we're going to live as a nation of laws, you cannot claim you know the outcome of that race. That whole entire thing either has to be investigated or you have to just throw it in the garbage, follow election law, follow the procedures as they are delineated by federal and state law, and run an honest, accurate, auditable, provable election. And then the people, then you won't have election deniers. I mean, we're election
No.
investigators, frankly. But
Yeah,
then you
and
won't have this problem because everyone can go back. It's a zero trust environment, politics, right? People are wedded. They're absolutely like their loyalty to a team. They are wedded to a party and they're wedded to that party winning. And so if you have a zero trust environment like that, it has to be provable. That's how you
yeah,
maintain domestic tranquility. People are at
right.
each other's throats over this. It's
Already,
horrid.
and it feels like it definitely could be heating up a bit. It seems like the elections are just destroyed and they need to be rebuilt up from the ground. Like, it almost seems like there's nothing we can do to fix this up, and paper ballots, same day voting is essential to the continuation of the country, and like you said, the trust in the system. The
Right.
trust is gone.
Well, that's certainly one way to fix the system.
I mean, it's
I,
extreme,
I
and
Yes. One thing that people don't really understand, it took me a while to really grasp this piece, which is our elections right now, our election systems are highly technical and complex. They've become really a high-tech operation, and therefore the network of federal and state laws that protects every transfer of data in that system are also highly technical and complex. And there are a few people, or there are few people who have the proper training and experience to oversight and manage that system securely. They do exist, right? So, for example, if you think about banks, banks process accurately millions and millions of transactions every day. Like, for example, take the deficit we found. If your account, your bank account was missing $338,000 from what you put in to what your bank statement said, you would absolutely would tear those books open to try to find out where in the heck that money went. Like,
Right.
where is it? And is there more missing? Is that all of it? Or is that only the part that we uncovered?
I mean, the
Right.
fact that you
So,
uncovered it at all is really miraculous, like you said. It's just such a gigantic undertaking, and it took citizens to do that because nobody else is going to ever,
right.
apparently.
That's true. It appears that no one had the will or the interest to do so. But what I wanted to get to is, like, when you have a deficit like that and it shows that this network of laws has been breached. And what we have for elections officials at this time in New York State, in all the counties, is we have people oversighting this highly complex technical system that are party loyalists. They might be brilliant realtors or outstanding attorneys. They could be great school teachers, inspiring, uplifting school teachers. They could be a lot of things, but they are not information assurance specialists in a technical system. And again, those people do exist. Banks hire them, airlines hire them, airports. It's like if you were going to hire an air traffic controller for JFK International Airport, you don't pick someone because they play nice in the sandbox. You pick them because they have the ability to sit there in that chair and manage all of these different planes, hundreds and hundreds of people on every one of them at different altitudes, different times, different places in the sky. It's a very complex system. Get them all down, landed, and out the door on time, right? That's the kind of person we need oversighting our election system, or like a military cyber command operative. We can't have these ignorant. I mean, they're not ignorant in their own arena, but they're ignorant of these ability. They don't have these skills, and yet they're given a big fat salary, which is really, frankly, a bribe. It's a bribe saying, hey, it will pay you a whole bunch of money. You just sign on this line. And guess what? You're going to be left holding the bag. If this ever blows up, you're holding the bag because it's your signature on that piece of paper. And they just don't have the ability to navigate the system. So my point is, getting back to your question, this system that we have, it's there's no reason it can't be administered accurately. You just have to have the people in position who have the skills, the
And the
experience,
will.
and the integrity to run it accurately.
Are you in
Because
touch with other
all
states?
these laws will show you when the system has been breached. And as soon as there's a breach, this is a national security issue. The New York State voter database is part of our critical infrastructure, right? People get lost. They think, oh, it's the county legislator, it's the sheriff, it's this, it's that. This is, if a foreign power wants to infiltrate the United States and gain a foothold in, say, the Empire State, where Wall Street is located, what better way than to hack into the voter roll database and start wrecking havoc? And it's not, it's like not being investigated.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot of information. And like, where do we go from here? Like, what do you need? What do you need from the audience? Let's put it that way.
Right. Well, I really encourage people to go to auditny.com and get armed with the facts. If you fill out our volunteer form, rather, you'll be onboarded into the team, and you'll be able to come to more and more meetings and trainings and network with others who see it the way you see it. It's very uplifting. It's actually a lot of fun to be on the New York Citizens Audit team because we have so many pieces of brilliant evidence and so much hope around what we're doing, and we're very, very determined. So come and join us. You can also, on the front page of the website, on the home page, you can request a customized version of the resolution. So if you want to bring that resolution, say you live, in Farmingdale or whatever, and you want to bring that resolution to your town board, you just click the button that says, request it. You give us the names and the titles of the people you want added to the document, and within 2 days you'll have it. You can print it out and you can go start getting signatures. And we
That's
also have
amazing.
training for that process. If people don't want to just, wade in on their own, come in, sign up as a volunteer, and we will train you in every one of these steps that we have extended as a way for we the people to come together, because we have to start from the ground up. Our town officials are the least likely. I'm not saying there aren't any, but they're the least likely in New York State to be subject now to elite capture. They're the ones who see it the way we see it, and we have to gain their support, and we have to let them know, look at what we found.
Like,
Because
it's just
people
a mess.
across New York State are saying, yeah, because people across New York State are like, this, how is this possible? This doesn't make any sense. My neighbors
Right.
are not this progressive. This town, these people, who
And
is this progressive? Who agrees with this?
so it's
And
not adding
even,
up. People are noticing, and we need to reach some sort of critical mass in order to make that dent and turn that tide. And what you're doing is giving people and citizens the platform and the knowledge to be able to do that with all the tools they need, which is really, really cool.
and to come together and to
Yeah.
feel like we're helping each other and we're uplifting each other instead of going on Twitter and bashing each other and complaining. Let's come together. Every single person has skills and gifts that were given to us. We have morality, we have knowledge, we have so much to offer our state and our nation. And we do not have to just sit here and watch our culture be destroyed. And we
Well,
don't have to be violent. We have the facts. We are armed with the facts, and we have the law on our side, and the law is clear. And they're
we have the
only going
law
to be able
and
to thwart it for so long.
right. And once people have the information, we have the people as well. I'm sure anybody you speak to is outraged by this and does want to help and add their name to the list of voices who are speaking up against this. And it's really thanks to people like you who are making such a difference and making an impact. So thank you so much for joining us. Again, go to newyorkaudit.com. Did I get that correct?
It's auditny.com.
Almost auditny.com.
Backwards.
We'll put it on the screen and in the description, and follow Miss Hornik on the social media platforms and New York Audit all over the place. And thank you so much for joining us, Miss Hornik. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. You too.